before your next flight out of London even begins. Before you've checked a single bag, you could be charged £50 just to reach the terminal. Not a tax, not a fine. A deliberate punishment for choosing to drive. And that toll? It's the least insane part of this story. Because to fix its runway problem, Heathrow Airport is planning to bury Europe's busiest motorway under millions of tons of concrete, demolish over 750 family homes, and spend up to £49 billion, all for one single runway. The airlines who desperately need that runway? They're spending millions trying to kill it. This is how one airport became so broken. Even the people who profit from it cannot fix it. Heathrow is running at nearly 100% capacity. 2 runways, 2 strips of tarmac, handling more international passengers than any other airport on the planet. On a busy day, a plane lands or takes off every 45 seconds. There is zero margin for error, zero room for growth, and no tolerance for anything going wrong. The solution seems obvious. Build a 3rd runway. A new 3,500-meter northwest runway would add up to 54 million passengers a year. But Heathrow isn't surrounded by empty fields. It's completely landlocked, hemmed in by dense suburbs, major motorways, and one of the oldest communities in England. To build this runway, Heathrow must destroy part of Harmondsworth, a village so ancient it was recorded in the Domesday Book in 1086. Nearly 1,000 years old, the expansion plan would demolish 752 homes, wipe out entire streets, and erase schools and community centers that have served families for generations. Residents have fought this for decades. Some families have already been bought out and relocated. Others are holding on, hoping the project collapses under its own weight. But even if you cleared every house, there's still a bigger problem, sitting directly in the runway's path. The proposed runway crosses directly over the M25, the busiest road in the United Kingdom, carrying over 200,000 vehicles daily. Think about what that actually means for a second. Imagine shutting down the UK's busiest road. Not rerouting it, not closing it for a weekend. Burying it alive. Engineers would pour millions of tons of reinforced concrete around an active 24-hour motorway, while lorries and commuters roll through underneath, completely unaware that an airport is being built over their heads. Then, in a single overnight window, they'd flip all 200,000 daily vehicles onto the new route, seal the old road shut, and pour a runway on top, the old section of the M25. Entombed. Gone. Nobody has ever done this. Not remotely close to this scale. Because the loads engineers are talking about aren't just lorries and cars. They're fully loaded passenger jets, some weighing over 500 tons, slamming into that concrete surface hundreds of times a day, every day for decades. One crack in the wrong place and you don't just have a road problem. You have a runway problem. 200,000 daily drivers trapped underneath it, and the most expensive infrastructure embarrassment in British history. The tunnel and runway works alone are estimated at £21 billion. And that number has already climbed. Multiple times. Even if the tunnel works, there's still a crisis waiting on the surface. Picture this. You live in Hounslow. You work a 6 a.m. shift at the airport. Right now your commute is 25 minutes. After expansion, traffic consultants project that the same journey, same road, same car, takes over an hour every morning, because 18,000 extra freight movements a day will be feeding into the same roads you use. Tens of thousands of extra passenger journeys, extra staff, extra deliveries. All of it funneling into West London's already broken road network. Heathrow already generates roughly 140,000 vehicle trips daily. The roads around it? Already near their limit on a normal Tuesday afternoon. Traffic models show how the surrounding network reaches what planners call total gridlock within years of the new runway opening. That phrase sounds abstract, until you realize it means your 25-minute commute becomes your entire morning. It means the delivery driver can't reach his depot. It means ambulances sitting in queues. To avoid that, Heathrow's plan requires 65 to 70% of all passengers and staff to use public transport. Voluntarily. And when voluntary doesn't work, because it never fully does. Transport economists say you'd need to charge drivers £50 per visit. Staff, £10 every single working day. That £50 from the start of this video, that's not a scare tactic. That's the math they've already done. At this point, the obvious question is, why not build somewhere else? Gatwick Airport, 45 minutes south, has proposed its own expansion for about £2.2 billion. No motorway to bury, no village to demolish. The airlines have consistently refused to support it. The reason is how global aviation actually works. Airlines concentrate connecting flights at one dominant hub, so passengers from dozens of cities can transfer onto long-haul routes. In a single place, split that across 2 airports and the system fractures. Longer transfers, higher costs, a genuine chance of missing your next flight. So airlines say, it must be Heathrow. Only Heathrow. Absolutely Heathrow, which sets up one of the most self-defeating contradictions in British infrastructure history. The same airlines demanding expansion at Heathrow are paying lawyers and lobbyists to fight it. Start with the simpler reason. Heathrow already carries £17 billion in existing debt. The expansion is privately financed. Zero government money. So every pound of that £49 billion gets recovered through fees charged to airlines per flight. Analysts project that requires at least a 17% increase in landing charges. Higher charges, higher ticket prices, lower demand. International Airlines Group, parent of British Airways, Iberia, and Aer Lingus, formally opposes the project on exactly these grounds. That alone explains the opposition. But then there's the second reason. The one nobody at British Airways will say out loud. Heathrow's capacity crunch is, quietly, making British Airways extraordinarily rich. When there aren't enough slots to go around, the ones that exist become scarce. Scarce means valuable. Extremely valuable. British Airways holds more Heathrow slots than any other airline on Earth. On the most profitable long-haul routes, New York, Dubai, Singapore, restricted supply means premium fares hold firm. There's no budget carrier undercutting them because there are no spare slots for a budget carrier to use. A congested Heathrow is exactly the market British Airways wants to operate in. They need the runway to exist, to keep the story alive. Keep investors calm, keep regulators off their back. They just need it to never actually get built. Then there's the bill the planet gets handed, and this one doesn't have a price tag yet. Heathrow is already the single largest source of carbon emissions in the United Kingdom, not just in aviation, not just in transport. Across the entire economy. One airport, bigger than any factory, any power station, any shipping hub in the country. A third runway enables up to 276,000 additional flights per year, over 700 extra flights every single day, adding approximately 7 megatons of CO2 annually. Roughly the same as dropping a mid-sized country's entire emissions on top of what's already there. The UK government has legally binding commitments to reach net zero by 2050. Read those two things back to back and sit with it. A government that wrote net zero into law. That same government approving the expansion of the country's single biggest carbon source. Nobody has explained how both things can be true simultaneously. Nobody has shown the maths. Nobody has produced a credible pathway where Heathrow expands by 276,000 flights a year and Britain still hits its climate targets. Nobody has even tried. And maybe that's the most revealing thing in this entire story. Not the £49 billion. Not the buried motorway. Not the demolished village. The fact that the people making this decision quietly stopped trying to justify the climate side of it. And just kept going. Anyway, London's most important airport is trapped. Trapped by geography it cannot change. Strangled by traffic it cannot absorb. Crushed by debt it cannot escape. Opposed by the very airlines it was built to serve, and constrained by climate commitments that the government signed and then apparently forgot. Britain is being asked to spend £49 billion, erase a 1,000-year-old village, and entomb its busiest road under concrete. To solve a capacity problem, that one of its biggest airlines is quietly, deliberately profiting from keeping unsolved. So here's the question I actually want you to answer before you scroll to the comments. If British Airways loses money the day Heathrow's third runway opens, and gains money every year it stays unbuilt, at what point does opposition to expansion stop being a policy position and start being a business strategy? That line is blurrier than you think.